Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Paul Graney. The Federal Reserve will announce its latest interest rate decision this afternoon. What to expect? Lower prices, higher wages, and new tax cuts. President Trump lays out what he calls a turning point for the economy as he visits Pennsylvania to launch his national tour. Eileen Higgins wins Miami's mayoral race and will become the city's first Democratic mayor in nearly 3 decades. How her win is giving Democrats a boost ahead of the midterms. A federal judge today ordering the Trump administration to temporarily end its deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles. He said there was no obstruction of federal law. Some visitors to the U.S. could face new hurdles. Customs and Border Protection is proposing that some applicants submit up to 5 years of social media history and expanded personal data. A new development in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. A federal judge today approving the unsealing of documents from the probe and criminal prosecution of the accused sex trafficker.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And it's great to have you here this Wednesday afternoon. A federal judge today ordering that the Trump administration temporarily end its deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles and return control of the Guard to the state of California. In a lengthy written order, Judge Charles Breyer decided there was no evidence that federal law was being obstructed in Los Angeles. The judge rejected the Justice Department's argument that since the initial deployment was lawful, the court could not review subsequent redeployments of those troops. Breyer said the president's power to call up the National Guard for federal service is not an exclusive power and that it can be checked by a judge. Governor Newsom had argued that 2 subsequent 90-day deployments, which extended the presence of the 30 guards until February 2nd, 2026, were unjustified. Breyer agreed. The judge declined to grant Newsom's request that all future federalizations of troops be automatically blocked and instructed him to challenge any future deployments in court. And the Trump administration is changing lanes into a trucking industry crackdown. Here's more.
In a post on X this morning, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said 9,500 truck drivers have been pulled off the road for not speaking English. President Trump issued an executive order this spring calling for common sense rules of the road for U.S. truckers. The DOT followed up with new guidelines prompting inspectors to pull drivers who didn't speak enough English. And Secretary Duffy tried to limit commercial driver's licenses for foreign-born applicants. But a federal court has paused that initiative. We'll be keeping you updated.
And some visitors to the U.S. could experience a new hurdle, a new CBP proposal which would require applicants from countries in the visa waiver program to disclose up to 5 years of social media history. The condition would apply to those using the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or ESTA. The plan would also collect additional data when available. That includes phone numbers used in the past 5 years, email addresses from the last decade, and would also require several biometric identifiers such as facial, fingerprint, and DNA and iris information. Applicants would be further asked to provide details about family members, and the proposal is up for a 60-day public comment period. ESTA allows travelers from nations to visit the U.S. for up to 90 days. Some immigration attorneys warn that the expanded requirements could discourage travel and online expression. And now an update on the surviving National Guardsman, one of 2 who were shot in D.C. while on patrol. President Trump said yesterday the injured man is progressing in his recovery.
And today I got a call that he got up from bed. Do you believe that? He got up. He got up. Now, he didn't speak. He's not ready for that yet. He got hit in the head. But he got up, and boy, they're so happy. It's amazing. And the care that they've given him at the hospital, and the generals that have been there, the military that's been there, it's amazing.
Now, Guardsman Andy Wolf's mom posted online that her son had brought a plastic cup to his mouth to drink and was breathing without a ventilator. Wolf and Guardsman Sarah Beckstrom were ambushed as they patrolled a subway station 3 blocks from the White House on November 26th. Beckstrom died from her injuries the next day. A 29-year-old Afghan national has been charged with the murder. He's pleaded not guilty. He was also shot during the confrontation. And a holiday gift from a divided Federal Reserve Committee. It has delivered one more rate cut for the year to a range between 3.5 to 3.75%. This was a tough call for Fed officials. They're in disagreement over which side of their dual mandate to prioritize: full employment or stable prices. Job growth this year has been unusually weak. Several officials have said that the situation could get worse if they don't continue to lower rates. Other officials said that the greater risk is that inflation will stay stuck above the Fed's 2% target as tariffs pack a bigger punch. Added pressure to this decision was a lack of key data on employment and inflation for October and November. These were delayed by the historic government shutdown. This month's meeting marks the last before Powell's successor will be named. His term ends in May, and President Trump said he knows who he's going to nominate and plans to make the announcement early next year. And the president hits the road, making his case on affordability. Speaking to an energetic crowd in Pennsylvania yesterday, President Trump said his administration is driving down the cost of living nationwide. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the key takeaways.
Thousands braved freezing temperatures, standing in a line that wrapped around the Mount Airy Casino and Resort in Mount Pocono. An overflow room had to be opened after the main ballroom filled to capacity. The president told the crowd that his administration is bringing prices down rapidly.
And I have no higher priority than making America affordable again. That's what we're going to do. And again, they caused the high prices and we're bringing them down. It's a simple message.
He pointed to groceries, including butter, eggs, fruit, pasta, and rice, as well as gasoline.
We're right now drilling more oil than we've ever done ever before. Prices are way down. We just had 4 states. It was just reported that 4 states had $1.99 a gallon. Right?
The White House says deregulation is also helping lower costs by removing Biden-era climate-related restrictions, saving Americans $180 billion collectively, averaging about $2,100 for a family of 4.
We have more oil and gas than any country anywhere in the world. Is that right? And they want us to go to batteries. Let's go to batteries. We don't have battery content, so let's go to batteries.
Trump also said coal mining is up by 2.4 million tons a month and that steel production is rebounding.
We're building steel mills all over the country, and U.S. Steel is coming back at a level never thought possible before.
The president touted rising real wages under his administration.
Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000 a year. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has already seen their wages increase by more than $1,300, and that's in just a few months. And for construction workers, it's $1,800 up versus $3,500 down.
He described efforts to tame inflation, which surged during the pandemic and under President Biden to as high as 9.1%. The Bureau of Labor Statistics puts the current rate at 2.7%. Trump also highlighted declining mortgage rates, though he urged Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to lower interest rates further.
Looking ahead, the president says more relief is on the way. Tax cuts in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, he noted, will reduce tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security benefits. The law is projected to boost tax refunds by roughly $1,000 per filer. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And a federal judge in Manhattan today ordered the public release of records from a grand jury investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. The decision reverses the judge's denial of an August DOJ request to unseal the grand jury materials. At that time, Richard Berman, the judge, cited possible threats to victims' safety and privacy, but now he stated that the release is warranted because of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which President Trump signed into law last month. Berman's order comes one day after another judge granted a similar request in the case of Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in prison for sex trafficking underage girls with Epstein. And Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins announcing an initiative today promoting regenerative agriculture. Rollins said the department would invest $700 million into the program.
Protecting and improving the health of our soil is critical, not only for the future viability of farmland, but to the future success of American farmers. In order to continue to be the most productive and most efficient growers in the world, we must protect our topsoil from unnecessary erosion and boost the microbiome of the soil.
Rollins said the program would prioritize American farmers as part of the Make America Healthy Again agenda. The Agriculture Secretary added that the initiative will support access to domestically grown whole foods. Rollins called whole foods critical to addressing the chronic disease crisis nationwide. She added that the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production would extend regenerative priorities into cities and urban areas. And Secretary of War Pete Hegseth meeting with his counterparts from the UK and Australia. Hegseth praised the alliance between the three nations.
A continued commitment to a pragmatic, practical application of hard power between our countries that reflect peace through strength and also hard power, real capabilities that demonstrate a deterrent effect that we all want. We may lead our departments of war, ministers of defense, but our goal is peace on behalf of the American people, the Australian people, and the UK, and we pursue that together on behalf of our leadership.
All three officials offered condolences to the family of a UK service member killed in Ukraine. The UK's Keir Starmer said the paratrooper was killed away from the front lines while observing Ukrainian forces test new defense capability. Hegseth also said the relationships between the three nations are strong and that President Trump likes countries that, quote, step up. Forced organ harvesting, forced labor, and overseas repression. These are among the Chinese regime's human rights abuses highlighted by U.S. government agency. Congressional Executive Commission on China released its annual report today on China's human rights record called Promises Made, Promises Broken. It highlights human rights abuses, including the expansion of forced labor, systemic repression of religious and ethnic communities such as Falun Gong, Uyghurs, and Christians, and mass censorship. The year's report also dedicates a section on overseas abuses, such as harassments of rights advocates outside of China's borders, including here in America. The report concludes that the CCP's human rights violations are part of a global strategy to intimidate and censor people on U.S. soil. It recommends several actions for government leaders, such as restricting organ tourism, supporting victims, and developing a whole-of-government strategy against transnational repression. And still to come, storms bring heavy rains and flooding to the Pacific Northwest, and there's more wet weather on the way. Stay tuned.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiang Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Now's the time to get your home ready for hosting with the holiday savings event at Mathis Home. They have over 100 dining sets in stock with the styles you like at incredible values. This set is a great deal. You get the contemporary trestle table and 4 comfy side chairs, all 5 pieces for just $6.99. And you don't have to wait. With fast and easy financing and free delivery, you can enjoy your new dining set tonight. Get the lowest prices of the year during the holiday savings event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. The Department of Homeland Security holding a press conference right now to announce a new task force in New York. Let's take a look.
Federal violations both within the United States and throughout the world. Violations include, but are not limited to, drug trafficking, money laundering, weapons trafficking, human trafficking, homicide, extortion, kidnapping, and other TCO-related violations where there is or may be a federal investigative interest. The HSTF represents the power of partnership, combining federal, state, and local resources to address these threats more effectively than any agency can alone. With me today, we have leaders from some of the partner agencies that comprise the HSTF New York. The Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Diplomatic Security Service, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, and the United States Secret Service. First, you will hear from some of the leaders behind the formation of the HSTF New York. We will then have a brief signing ceremony, followed by on-topic questions and the opportunity for pull-aside interviews. And now, I would like to turn it over to Jay Clayton, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York.
Thank you, Rick. Good afternoon. Today's announcement of our whole-of-government commitment to Homeland Security is, at its core, about public safety for all New Yorkers. New Yorkers want public safety. They want our parks, schools, subways, and streets to be both safe places and places that feel safe for our families, our children, and our visitors. At the Southern District, across the Justice Department, and across law enforcement, with our federal and state partners, we hear what New Yorkers want, and we are laser focused on delivering it for them. Crime is down, but it is still way above where it should be, particularly for our most vulnerable. And that's really what this is all about. It's about delivering public safety for the most vulnerable people in New York. It's down because of the hard work of the men and women behind me. Let me give you a few highlights over the last year. Our agencies have collectively investigated and charged murders, shootings, stabbings, sex trafficking, and narcotics distribution by Tren de Aragua, TDA, and many other brutally violent gangs. We've charged over a dozen narco-terrorists and members of state-sponsored drug cartels. We've charged multiple people with fentanyl distribution and precursor production. Gun charges, federal gun charges, are being brought at twice the rate of previous years. And most recently, we had a wide sweep of narcotics trafficking in and around Washington Square Park. The Washington Square Park effort exemplifies what we can do with a whole of law enforcement approach to public safety. A few data points. From 2020 to 2023 alone, more than 10,000 people died of fatal drug poisoning in New York City. Washington Square Park was an epicenter of this crisis. During that period, the NYPD and medical personnel responded to over 65 reports of apparent overdoses in the park. With the great men and women of the New York Police Department, the DEA, and our other federal partners, those days are behind us. This is an example that we're going to follow going forward. We look forward to making New York safer each and every day for every person in New York. I'm now going to introduce Mike Considine, the first assistant from the Eastern District of New York. Mike?
Thank you, Jay. Good afternoon. As Jay mentioned, I'm Mike Considine, first assistant U.S. attorney in Brooklyn. The United States Attorney, Mr. Nacella, is on sick leave today and sends his regrets for not being with his esteemed HSTF partners. This historic collaboration occurring with this task force strengthens our mission to defend the citizens of our districts from the transnational criminal organizations, which Jay mentioned, human smugglers, and cyber criminals who inflict tremendous damage to our country. And we've already seen remarkable results. For example, our office is prosecuting the infamous cartel leader, RCQ, Rafael Caro Quintero, who was charged with the murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarano. What's more, our collective efforts have led to the conviction of El Mayo, Ismael Zambada Garcia, co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel. He operated a continuing criminal enterprise that trafficked massive quantities of fentanyl, cocaine, and other drugs into the United States. Lastly, we are working to cut off alternate revenue streams for the Jalisco cartel, designated as a foreign terrorist organization. And to that end, we charge two individuals, Julio Cesar Montero Pinzon and Carlos Andre Rivera Varela, with providing material terrorism support through a sprawling timeshare fraud scheme targeting American citizens. A wanted poster depicting these defendants is being released today. We would be remiss if we did not also express our appreciation for all of our agency partners, those here today and those who could not be with us. We are all collectively committed to improving the quality of life for our citizens by dismantling these corrupt organizations from their very top. I may now turn over the podium to Chris Rea, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI New York Field Office.
All right, thank you, Mike. Again, I'm Christopher Rea. I'm the Assistant Director of the FBI's New York Field Office. Today, along with my colleagues, I'm proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with other federal, state, and local partners to announce the first of its kind regional New York Homeland Security Task Force. This new team was created as a deliberate response to the growing threat posed by transnational criminal enterprises and foreign terrorist organizations. And quite frankly, it's initiatives like this and this task force that have contributed to the drastic decrease in violent crime, not only here in New York City, but across the country. FBI New York has a long history disrupting gangs and other sophisticated criminal groups, specifically cartels. The threat we face today is more complex, more violent, and more interconnected than ever. Utilizing our proven Joint Terrorism Task Force model, which, as you know, is one of the most accomplished and renowned task force models in history, we are bringing the full force of the federal, state, and local government to bear against the threat by combining operational and intelligence capabilities. Additionally, with the new authorities and investigative tools granted to us after the designation of the most violent drug cartels and transnational gangs as foreign terrorist organizations, or FTOs, we will systematically and methodically dismantle these enterprises who are responsible for the pervasive trafficking of lethal drugs and weapons into our communities. Since standing up the New York HSTF earlier this year, our agents, analysts, and professional staff got right to work, and their hard work is already paying massive dividends. Today, I would like to share with you just two of the multiple high-level cases our New York HSTF have been involved in. The first one, in August 2025, our office coordinated with the Southern District of New York to charge and arrest 7 leaders and members of a violent Mexico-based drug trafficking organization for the alleged trafficking of firearms and smuggling dozens of kilograms of cocaine, meth, and fentanyl into this country. Their alleged criminality plagued our communities, even jeopardizing innocent bystanders with public rivalry shootings. Secondly, as First Assistant U.S. Attorney Considine mentioned, we are seeking information for 2 high-ranking leaders of CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Our FBI DEA Trident Directorate has aggressively utilized those new authorities that I just mentioned, which had been previously only authorized under national security cases and or JTTF, against the new FTO designation of CJNG. As mentioned earlier, Carlos Andres Rivera Varela and Julio Cesar Montero Pinzon are wanted for allegedly providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization and money laundering conspiracy. If you recognize those charges, that foreign terrorist charge, as a charge that until now had only been available to charge through our JTTF. And now, due to the new authorities that have been granted to us, we can now charge that charge under a foreign terrorist organization. These fugitives allegedly funneled profits from a complex fraud scheme to finance CJNG in support of drug trafficking and other crimes. If you have any information related to either of these subjects, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip at fbi.tips.gov. Additionally, the FBI is offering a reward of up to $245,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of these fugitives. I would like to personally thank SAC Patel and SAC Chavis, as well as all the participating agencies for their commitment to combating the persistent cartel threat and the drug distribution network. And thank you to U.S. Attorneys Clayton and U.S. Attorney Nacella for your aggressive prosecution of these critical cases. These judicial successes directly translate into taking bad guys off of our streets. Through unified partnership.
And now that was the DHS and others launching a new first ever regional task force in New York to tackle cartels, human trafficking and transnational crime. Now, it's a collaboration between the DHS, the FBI, the NYPD and others to deliver public safety for the most vulnerable in New York. Officials, as you heard, touting previous arrests for narco trafficking, fentanyl distribution and fentanyl precursor production. We'll keep you up to date on that. Now, still to come, Eileen Higgins wins Miami's mayoral race and will become the city's first Democratic mayor in nearly 3 decades. How her win is giving Democrats a boost ahead of the midterms. There's that and more after the break.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms.
Thank you.
Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast?
No thanks, we're good.
They're always in their own world.
How'd you get there?
Twice the work. Twice the surprises.
Just try it.
But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling.
I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/act now.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Greeny. Democrat Eileen Higgins will be Miami's next mayor after a decisive win in a runoff election. She'll become the city's first Democratic mayor in nearly 30 years. The race was called within minutes of polls closing yesterday, with Higgins having a nearly 20-point lead over Republican Emilio Gonzalez. He's a former city manager who was backed by President Trump. Gonzalez called Higgins last night to concede and thanked supporters gathered for his watch party. The race was officially nonpartisan, and both candidates focused on affordability, corruption, and cutting spending. Higgins' win is now drawing national attention ahead of the 2026 midterms as Democrats look to build momentum in Florida. And with us now is Angie Wong, Miami Republican committeewoman and political columnist, and Mike Leon, host of the Can We Please Talk podcast and director of strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. Both of you, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us as always. Mike, you're down there in the greater Miami area. What do you put this win down to?
Well, first off, good to see everybody. I think there's a couple of things here. I think first, we're overanalyzing a 25 race and trying to think about what it'll tell us for 2026. And I'll echo this here, and I've echoed it on other shows. We don't know what voters will be thinking in 2026, so we can't really look at that. That's number one. Number two, the Miami mayor's race is really a small sliver of Miami. I think people don't understand that don't live down here. I know Angie knows this, and she's going to be nodding along, right? Because Danielle Cava is the Miami-Dade County mayor. This is the Miami mayor, which is a smaller section where are some of the towns that are included. Like, I don't live in the Miami mayor area. I live in Kendall, right, for example. So the voter turnout is the third thing I would look at this, Paul, right? Like, there's a small amount of people that voted in this process, maybe 39,000 people overall with respect to all the registered voters. Like, it's just a small sliver and it's a small sample, but I know the big significance is that there hasn't been a Democrat elected here in over 30 years in that position itself. So I think there's a little over magnification, but as to your overall question of why she won, I think there's a myriad of factors, obviously the affordability and things like that, but I also think the low voter turnout, this, non-election cycle, this was a special runoff that a lot of people didn't know about down here. And I think those factors kind of contributed in terms of the low voter turnout and her able to win this race.
Angie, I'm sure you're glad to hear Mike Leon downplaying this a little bit, being on the Republican side. But like he said, city will have its first Democratic mayor in 30 years. What happened to the Republicans this time?
Yeah, and congratulations to Eileen Higgins. She won this fair and square. Mike is absolutely right. This is a special election. In fact, 3/4 of the city of Miami pretty much didn't even know there was an election happening. The turnout was so low. We expected that. We knew that only super voters would really come out for a race like this because of messaging. There was no urgency to actually get out and vote. Not like we saw in 2024 in November. There was absolutely no rage voting, and Trump wasn't on the ticket. So all those factors definitely came into play yesterday. Remember, the percentages don't matter here because the turnout was so low. Mike is right. Under 40,000 voters actually came out to give Eileen the win. And I think that's where, I'm sure the RNC is doing a bit of soul searching today because we were down by 5,000 votes. That's one high-rise building here in downtown Miami, if we just turned it out, that we could have made up and closed that gap. So I'm sure there's a lot of soul searching, but I'm happy to see it because this prepares us way better for the midterm elections next year. And now that we know what the problem areas are, I really do hope that leadership will take care of this and hopefully close the gap for 2026.
Always positive. Mike, I'll be honest. I was surprised to hear that Miami has had a Republican mayor for so long. These big metro areas, usually blue. What did allow Republicans to perform so well there until now?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple things, and Angie knows this, and my face will tell it, is that it's a Spanish-speaking community, right? Obviously, we have a lot of Cubans that have come here 90 miles away from, obviously Key West, not from Miami, but a lot of Cubans end up settling in this area. And obviously, you have a lot of Venezuelans that live in the greater Doral area outside of Miami. So there's a lot of Hispanics that are, in this community. The buzzwords and phrases around socialism and communism, the conflation of these terms, we can get into that as well. A lot of that stuff is the reason why there's more registered Republicans, in my opinion, in Miami as opposed to Democrats. It's not by a lot. And a lot of people are actually registered independents. Of the 1.2.5 million voters or so, the independent part of this is starting to catch up. It's almost looking, to be honest with you, Paul, a little bit like Arizona with respect to Republicans, Democrats, and registered independents. But in terms of, is that a shock? I think the bigger shock to what Angie was saying before was you saw the numbers from 2016, 20, and 24 starting to trend a little bit more, especially in Dade County, a little bit in Broward as you go further up in Palm Beach, going towards red and to Donald Trump in 24. This is a little bit of a shift. Again, a low voter turnout, a low sample size. Like Angie said, one high rise. That's very funny, Angie. One high rise in Miami, and probably Republicans could have won that. But it is a small sample. And I think a lot of people are maybe trying to say, whoa, this could be a bigger shift, right? Maybe we start to see that more of the blue pockets turn out in Florida, and Florida's back in play. I wouldn't go that far. This is such a smaller race. But to answer your question, Paul, it's not that shocking if you live down here to see a city like of Miami actually be red with respect to that race.
Mike, a lot of interesting points. I want to get back to this socialist label in just a moment, but I want to touch on something else you brought up. Angie, it is true over 70% of Miami residents identify as Hispanic. That's significant voter block. Some have put Higgins' win down to Trump's aggressive immigration policy. What are you hearing or seeing on that?
Well, I'm hearing from the left, especially lefty media, that this is rejection by the Latino community on Trump and his policies. But that's not what the maps are actually telling me. When you actually pull out a map, a victory map of yesterday's election, well, all of West Miami from Little Havana on to West Miami voted red. So they voted for the Trump-endorsed candidate, Emilio Gonzalez. Whereas the coastal areas where people like me from New York moved to and migrated from, that is completely solid blue, except for one little blip in Brickell where we turned that one red. But so, what I'm seeing is basically all the trends since the COVID years. You have a lot of Northerners moving to the coastal areas, seeking refuge in Florida. Unfortunately, they brought a lot of their policies and their voting with them. But then all the Latino communities did remain red, if not reddish. So I don't believe that the narrative that Latinos went in the other direction and started voting Democrat again. I don't actually see the data that supports that narrative that I've been seeing all over the headlines today. So that's a good thing. I don't think, I did say earlier, this could be a bellwether for the midterms, but quite honestly, the trends are kind of similar to November 2024 from my early reviews of the data. It hasn't changed all that much, but still a lot of work to do between now and November 2026.
Interesting analysis breaking down the various areas within Miami there, Angie. Thank you. Michael, I want to circle back to something you brought up. Some are describing the winner, Higgins, as a socialist. They say her win and Mamdani's win in New York are a sign that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party isn't going away anytime soon. How do you see it?
Well, it's a great question. Again, I don't know Eileen Higgins that well. Obviously, she's been working in Miami politics since 2018 or so. And obviously, she's a transplant. She's not from here. She's from New Mexico. She's got the label of La Gringa, as everyone has called her here. That just means the white person for people out there that don't speak Spanish. But in terms of is it a symbolic shift with respect to her and Mamdani? I got to be honest, as somebody who has seen Mamdani speak in person and has met him, and then somebody who has kind of seen Eileen Higgins, these two things couldn't be further from each other. Whether or not it's policy driven in terms of the two of them, I think there's a different aspect right now that the Democratic Party, I think, is starting to move towards. And that's more of the celebrity angle. Forget Eileen Higgins just for a second. If you look at what Jasmine Crockett now running in the Senate race, if you look at who she's going to be running against in the Democratic primary with James Tallarico, he went on Joe Rogan's show and did really well and impressed a lot of different people with respect to his policies. Then you look at Mamdani as well and the crowds that he was turning out with respect to the New York City mayor's race. I think the celebrity angle of it is starting to really carry the Democratic Party. I think they're starting to shift more into that. Who are the people that can actually shift and do things like that? Higgins was kind of a little bit of an outlier, but I think one of the things that I took away that I thought was really cool, and Angie, I don't know if you'll agree with this, Emilio Gonzalez said yesterday when he called her in the concession, he's like, I want to help you. We're going to be here to help you. And I think that is something that I would love for American politics in general to take away is that we are conceding races when the races are over and the numbers don't bear in your favor. But also the secondary part, we all want to win together. We should all want to win together. So how do we do that and how do we move things going forward?
Fantastic analysis from both of you guys. We appreciate you as always. Angie Wong and Mike Leon, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, is holding a news conference after releases of a Fed policy decision this afternoon. Let's take a look.
Maintaining an ample supply of reserves over time, thus supporting effective control of our policy rate. I will have more to say about monetary policy and its implementation after briefly reviewing economic developments. Although some key government data have yet to be released, available indicators suggest that economic activity has been expanding at a moderate pace. Consumer spending appears to have remained solid, and business fixed investment has continued to expand. In contrast, activity in the housing sector remains weak. The temporary shutdown of the federal government has likely weighed on economic activity in the current quarter, but these effects should be mostly offset by higher growth next quarter, reflecting the reopening. In our summary of economic projections, the median participant projects that real GDP will rise 1.7% this year and 2.3% next year, somewhat stronger than projected in September. In the labor market, although official employment data for October and November are delayed, available evidence suggests that both layoffs and hiring remain low, and that both households' perceptions of job availability and firms' perceptions of hiring difficulty continue to decline. The official report on the labor market for September, the most recent release, showed that the unemployment rate continued to edge up, reaching 4.4%, and that job gains had slowed significantly since earlier in the year. A good part of the slowing likely reflects a decline in the growth of the labor force due to lower immigration and labor force participation, though labor demand has clearly softened as well. In this less dynamic and somewhat softer labor market, the downside risks to employment appear to have risen in recent months. In our SEP, the median projection of the unemployment rate is 4.5% at the end of this year and edges down thereafter. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer-run goal. Very little data on inflation have been released since our meeting in October. Total PCE prices rose 2.8% over the 12 months ending in September, and excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices also rose 2.8%. These readings are higher than earlier in the year as inflation for goods has picked up, reflecting the effects of tariffs. In contrast, disinflation appears to be continuing for services. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have declined from their peaks earlier in the year, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 2.9% this year and 2.4% next year, a bit lower than the median projection in September. Thereafter, the median falls to 2%. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a quarter percentage point to 3.5% to 3.75%. In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. There is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate this tension between our employment and inflation goals. A reasonable base case is that the effects of tariffs on inflation will be relatively short-lived, effectively a one-time shift in the price level. Our obligation is to make sure that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. But with downside risks to employment having risen in recent months, the balance of risks has shifted. Our framework calls for us to take a balanced approach in promoting both sides of our dual mandate. Accordingly, we judged it appropriate at this meeting to lower our policy rate by a quarter percentage point. With today's decision, we have lowered our policy rate 0.75 percentage point over our last 3 meetings. This further normalization of our policy stance should help stabilize the labor market while allowing inflation to resume its downward trend toward 2% once the effects of tariffs have passed through. The adjustments to our policy stance since September bring it within a range of plausible estimates of neutral and leave us well positioned to determine the extent and timing of additional adjustments to our policy rate based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. And
that was the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell announcing a new interest rate cut. We will have more analysis on that for you later on how it will impact you. Now, the Justice Department is suing Minneapolis public schools for what it says is racial discrimination against teachers. The Department's Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit against the school district. The DOJ pointed to the district's collective bargaining agreement with a teachers' union. According to the lawsuit, the agreement favors teachers who are members of, quote, an underrepresented population. The DOJ accuses Minneapolis public schools of seeking to increase staffing of Black, Indigenous, and people of color to at least 40% by 2026. The suit also alleges that the district awards benefits and conditions to members of a third-party organization called Black Men Teach Fellows. The DOJ says those terms are not offered to female or non-Black teachers. In bringing the suit, Attorney General Pam Bondi said, quote, discrimination is unacceptable in all forms, especially when it comes to hiring decisions. And the U.S. Navy says it's recovered 2 aircraft that crashed into the South China Sea while flying off the USS Nimitz in October. An unmanned system was used to lift both the fighter jet and helicopter out of the water. No official cause was given for the crashes, which occurred within 30 minutes of each other during routine operations. All crew members were rescued. The Navy says it was crucial to recover the wreckage because it contained U.S. intelligence info, which could be detrimental if it fell into the wrong hands. China asserts ownership over almost all of the South China Sea in defiance of an international court ruling. And the U.S. is doubling down on its alliance with Japan following the country's escalating tensions with the Chinese Communist Party. Japan is flagging joint drills by China and Russia involving bombers near its airspace, calling them a show of force against the country. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
Japan says it has grave concerns about Russian bombers joining Chinese bombers in joint patrols near Japanese airspace.
The repeated joint bomber flights by both countries signify an expansion and intensification of activities around our nation, and we cannot but view them as a show of force against Japan.
The incident follows a string of dangerous encounters. Over the weekend, Japan said it responded to an airspace violation. A Chinese aircraft carrier aimed its radar at Japanese planes.
The Chinese side conducted intermittent radar lock-on for approximately 30 minutes. We will continue to strongly demand that the Chinese side prevent any recurrence of such dangerous actions.
The U.S. has since doubled down on its alliance. The U.S. State Department stating, China's actions were not conducive to regional peace and stability. Our commitment to our ally, Japan, is unwavering, and we are in close contact on this and other issues. The rising tensions comes after Japan's prime minister last month doubled down on support for Taiwan. In the case of a Chinese attack on Taiwan, the prime minister said it could trigger a potential military response from Tokyo. Beijing has already retaliated against Japan economically. The CCP has encouraged Chinese tourists against traveling to Japan, canceling more than 40% of Japan-bound flights scheduled from China. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And Italian cuisine earns UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage status. The Hindu festival of Diwali and Iceland's swimming pool culture make the list as well.
If you're out there and you're watching this message, we need your help and we need it now. This is a typical day at the outpatient department. Every day, we see very many cases of children with severe pneumonia. All these children need to be seen, and they all need to be seen today. This is baby Priscilla. She's 7 months old. When a child has pneumonia, you really need to move quick. This is like an infection in the baby's lungs. It really hurts for this child to be breathing. It feels like someone is squeezing your chest. If Priscilla doesn't get antibiotic treatment, it could lead to death.
We need your support right now to help save children's lives like Priscilla's. Please call or go online to givetosave.org and give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. You can help us provide life-saving medicines, food, and essentials to children in the most need.
The problem we have is we simply do not have enough medicine. It's very heartbreaking to see a child suffer like this.
Please help children like Priscilla before it's too late. All we need are 1,000 monthly donors. Please call or go online with your monthly gift of just $10, only 33 cents a day. Your donation today can help secure additional grants, which can multiply the impact of your support up to 10 times. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
With your help, we can save more lives. So please help us.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child survives. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. A new exhibition in Bologna details the life and career of Michelangelo. Rare sculptures, drawings, and original letters by the Italian master highlight the artist's connection to the city. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
In the galleries of Palazzo Fava, the Madonna of the Stairs, Michelangelo carved the piece in 1491 when he was still a teenager. Study on a draped figure hangs nearby. The new exhibition is entitled Michelangelo in Bologna.
The exhibition aims to be very narrative because these are like two stories from the same biography, that of Michelangelo, which is rich, varied, and long, having lived to the age of 89. So we find him as a young debutante and relatively serene in this first year in Bologna. We find him, however, much more tired and tormented as a 30-year-old.
The first part of the exhibition focuses on Michelangelo's arrival in Bologna in 1494. He arrived in the city at only 20 years old, fleeing political instability in Florence. At the time, he was commissioned for 3 statues for the Ark of San Domenico and the Basilica of San Domenico.
An experience in Bologna born of trauma, the fear that the different political regime was hostile and dangerous to him. However, it soon became a work experience when Aldrovandi secured for him what was perhaps the most prestigious commission possible for a young sculptor in Bologna.
The exhibition moves to Michelangelo's work from 1506 to 1508. By that time, he was already an established sculptor.
The second stay is important because he must regain the favor of Pope Julius II. There had been a disagreement between the two of them. Michelangelo suddenly left Rome because of how he had been treated by the pontiff. And at this point, in the end, Julius II called him to Bologna, recently conquered by his army.
The exhibition also includes correspondence between Michelangelo and his brother Buonarrota in Florence. The letter provides a glimpse into the artist's daily life, struggles, and aspirations. The exhibition, Michelangelo and Bologna, runs at Palazzo Fava until February 15, 2026. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And staying in Italy, UNESCO has recognized Italy's national cuisine as intangible cultural heritage. The UN's formal recognition honors the culture's cooking tradition. Italy made the list after a UNESCO meeting in New Delhi. The Hindu festival of Diwali and the swimming pool culture in Iceland also earned recognition. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said in a statement, quote, "This is a distinction that can only make us proud." Industry groups hope that the UNESCO recognition will boost tourism as well. And still to come, the chair of the Nobel Committee asks Nicolas Maduro to leave power. That's as Venezuela's opposition leader is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her work to restore democracy in this South American country. We have that and more after the break.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
When they learn something new and you can just see in their faces, it's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are my favorite.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
And welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Paul Graney. As expected, the Fed has squeezed in a third consecutive rate cut before the end of the year. The Department of Homeland Security announces a first-of-its-kind task force in New York State, what it plans to do to keep communities safe. A federal judge ordered the Trump administration to temporarily end its deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles. He said there was no obstruction of federal law. Eileen Higgins wins Miami's mayoral race and will become the city's first Democratic mayor in nearly 3 decades. How her win is giving Democrats a boost ahead of the midterms. European nations signed a declaration calling to end human rights rules being used to prevent the deportation of foreign criminals, saying current laws are outdated and no longer work in an era of mass migration. The chair of the Nobel Committee asks Nicolas Maduro to leave power as Venezuela's opposition leader is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her work to restore democracy in the South American country.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And it's great to have you here this Wednesday afternoon. The Nobel Committee held its award ceremony today for its renowned Peace Prize. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has the details.
The presidents of Panama, Paraguay, Ecuador, and Argentina, alongside several U.S. lawmakers, traveled to Norway to accompany the Venezuelan opposition leader in this year's award ceremony for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. Despite much anticipation, Maria Corina Machado was not able to attend the ceremony. Her daughter, Ana Corina Sosa, received the Nobel Peace Prize on her behalf and read a speech written by Machado.
During the past 16 months in clandestinity, we have built new networks of civic pressure and disciplined disobedience, preparing for Venezuela's orderly transition to democracy. This prize carries profound meaning. It reminds the world that democracy is essential to peace.
The 2025 Nobel Peace Prize and the support from presidents from the region have highlighted the oppression and the crimes of the Maduro regime in Venezuela.
Your power is not permanent. Your violence will not prevail over people who rise and resist. Mr. Maduro, accept the election result and step down.
The Venezuelan regime, which has killed extrajudicially more than 8,000 Venezuelans in the past 6 years, criticized the Nobel Committee.
La hipocresía.
Or peace, or Nobel Prize.
which is awarded to a person who calls for the invasion of Venezuela, who calls for military action, and who celebrates the murder of human beings in the Caribbean Sea.
During an interview earlier this week, President Trump did not rule out military interventions in Venezuela.
So how far would you go to take Maduro out of office?
I don't want to say that, but...
But you want to see him out?
His days are numbered.
Can you rule out an American ground invasion?
I don't want to rule in or out. I don't talk about it.
Maria Corina Machado has been in hiding in Venezuela for nearly 2 years as she's under threat from the regime. Security concerns did not allow her to arrive on time to the award ceremony in Oslo, but she is still expected to arrive in Norway this week. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
And President Trump is now speaking at the White House. Let's take a look.
Somewhat like a green card, but with big advantages over a green card. And companies are going to be able to go to the Wharton School of Finance, the Stern Business School, Harvard, MIT, wherever you may get your students, any school, and you're able to buy a card and keep that person in the United States, actually, so there's certainty, because I've heard from Tim Cook of Apple, and I've heard from a lot of people, some of the people at this table, that essentially in the United States you can't keep the student. You can't hire people from the best colleges because you don't know whether or not you can keep the person. They come and have the people get out, they throw the person out of the country. You graduate #1 from your college, and there's no way of guaranteeing, I guess you could say, there's no way of guaranteeing that they're able to stay in the country. Howard, maybe you'll give a little description of the Trump Gold Card, please.
Sure. So for an individual, it's $1 million, and for a corporation, it's $2 million. And as the president said, for a corporation, they spend $2 million. They can then have an employee, full vetting, the best vetting the government has ever done, $15,000 vetting to make sure these people absolutely qualify to be in America, absolutely qualify. And then the company can keep them here, and they have a path to citizenship, right? Obviously, they have to be perfect people in America, and having passed the vetting, after 5 years, they'll be available to become citizens, and then the corporation can put someone else on the card. So for a company, they can keep putting people on the card, one person per card, and for an individual, it's $1 million, and it's a gift to the United States of America to help America be great again under Donald Trump.
And there's really two gifts. It's a gift of getting somebody great coming into our country, because we think these will be some tremendous people that wouldn't be allowed to stay. You know, they graduate from college, they have to go back to India, they have to go back to China, they have to go back to France, they have to go back to wherever they came from. Very hard to stay. It's a shame. It's ridiculous things. We're taking care of that. The companies are going to be very happy. I know Apple's going to be happy, but a lot of the companies, nobody talked to me more about it than Tim Cook. He said it's a real problem, and it's not going to be a problem anymore. As you know, they used to send people up to Canada and other places, other countries, so we solved that. And the other thing is it'll take in, we think, probably billions of dollars that will go to the Treasury of the United States, that will go to an account where we can do things positive for the country. So it'll be a great thing. We'll take in, I think, billions of dollars. Many billions of dollars, even. So that's very exciting. The Trump accounts are doing really well. We have a man on my right, Michael Dell, who's an extraordinary person. His wife is even more extraordinary. I think I can say that. They have such a good relationship, she's an extraordinary person, right? Got a great wife. But they're two great people, and as you know, last week Michael contributed $6,250,000,000. And this is just something that's so special. So many people are in love with it. He understood it right from the beginning. It was his idea, and he understood it right from the beginning. Could you give maybe just a little description of why you loved it for such a long period of time, and we were able to get it through the great big beautiful bill, basically. That's how, what gave us the authorization to do it. Michael, please.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. So, you know, when we first heard about this idea, the idea was that the government would give $1,000 to a newborn baby in an account that they would own, and it would go in essentially the S&P 500 and compound. And when the child becomes 18, they could use that money to go to college, to buy a home, to start a business, to continue saving. And you know, I thought that was a great idea. I thought it'd be great if companies matched the government's contribution, which we're doing. A lot of the companies around the table have committed to doing that. And also thought about this is, wow, this is going to be like a platform for families and communities and philanthropists to contribute to those accounts. And so we originally started with the idea of, well, what if we gave some money to all the kids in our home state of Texas, right? We thought that would be a nice thing to do.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, it is. 1 out of 10 new kids in America are born in Texas.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Happen to be a fan of the state of Texas. But anyway, we thought about it some more, and we thought, you know, this is going to be something really special. We have a foundation. It focuses on children. It's been around for 26 years. And we said, well, why don't we go bigger? And so we talked about it. And, you know, now that the Investment America Act is a law, which that in itself is a incredible thing that occurred, it does create a platform. And we were super happy to announce that we would give, you know, $250. We arrived at $250 because next year will be the 250th birthday of America and 25 million children. We thought that was a nice thing to do because it would include most of the children that are 10 and under, that are not part of the government program, that live in zip codes where the median income is less than $150,000. And that was also an important part of our contribution. And I do believe there will be a number of other large gifts announced. I've already spoken with a few that will be announcing gifts at the state level,
right?
And more to come.
Yeah. It's amazing, and it's amazing the vision you have, but that's why you're so successful, frankly. And to think that Michael started off with not a lot of money, I would say, right? Not too much, like very little. And he can give a gift of $6,250,000,000, and I know he said he's going to do a lot more. It's pretty amazing. It's really a beautiful thing to watch. So great for our country. So we have the Trump accounts are doing really well, and it's become, I have to tell you, just everyone's talking about it, you know, beyond what I would have even thought. And it's going to make some young people relatively very wealthy. And in some cases, I mean, they could really be off to a great start. So some people have had that advantage and some people haven't, but it's a wonderful thing. Thank you to you and your beautiful wife. Thank you, sir. So it's a pleasure to welcome so many brilliant minds and distinguished business leaders back to the White House. I love these brilliant minds, including Michael Dell of Dell Technologies, who makes a great product. And I want to thank him for what he's done, what we just discussed, the accounts. We also are grateful to be joined by Enrique Lores of HP. So thank you very much, Enrique. Great job you're doing. Antonio Neri of HP Enterprise. Thank you very much. What's the difference between HP and HP Enterprise?
We focus on the cloud security, networking, and large systems.
The cloud's good. People have done very well with the cloud. That's great. Arvind Krishna of IBM, who's actually become, I would say, a legend. The job he's done. He's taken the stock from a rather low price to a very nice price. I won't say high because I'm sure you're going to say it's going to go up a lot more, right? But, so I can't say a high price. But he took IBM into a new stratosphere that nobody, I think, saw. If you go back before when he took over the company, nobody would have even imagined that you'd be able to do what you've done. So congratulations, become a good friend. Cristiano Amon of Qualcomm, and thank you very much. Congratulations on success. I know a lot about your company. You've done amazing. And Executive Director of the Technology CEO Council, Bruce Mehlman.
And now that was President Trump and some members of his cabinet plus business leaders announcing new details on the new immigration gold card. Individuals will pay $1 million for the card and corporations will pay $2 million for one card. Now, that will allow a person to come and work in the United States, and after 5 years, they will be eligible for citizenship. Now, it was said that they will be fully vetted at the cost of $15,000 per applicant. Companies can then reuse the gold card. If somebody, for example, has become a citizen and that's done, they don't need the gold card anymore, well, the companies can bring somebody else in on that gold card. Now, we'll keep you up to date on everything on that. It's quite interesting. And now, moving on, one more rate cut before the end of the year. The Federal Reserve has announced a slash in rates to range between 3.5 and 3.75%.
With today's decision, we have lowered our policy rate 0.75 of a percentage point over our last 3 meetings. This further normalization of our policy stance should help stabilize the labor market while allowing inflation to resume its downward trend toward 2% once the effects of tariffs have passed through.
Now, this was a split decision for Fed officials. They're in disagreement over which side of their dual mandate to prioritize: full employment or stable prices. Job growth this year has been unusually weak. Several officials have said the situation could get worse if they don't continue to lower rates. Other officials, though, said that the greater risk is that inflation will stay stuck above the Fed's 2% target as tariffs pack a bigger punch. In fact, there were 3 dissenting votes. This is the first time since 2019 there have been so many dissenting votes. Added pressure to the decision was a lack of key data on employment and inflation for October and November. These were delayed by the historic government shutdown. This month's meeting marks the last before Fed Chair Jerome Powell's successor will be named. His term ends in May, and President Trump says he knows whom he's going to nominate, and he plans to make the announcement early next year. And with us now is Julia Cartwright, Senior Research Fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research. Julia, great to see you as always. This is the 3rd rate cut in a row. Where are Americans likely to feel the effects?
Great question. This rate cut was very much baked into markets. They're reacting slightly. The bond market, for example, the 10-year is slightly bouncing around. It's slightly going down, and that's probably going to have the biggest impact on long-term rates like mortgage rates. Much more directly, that's going to be tied to this rate cut are going to be credit card rates and car loan rates. And those are going to be likely going down just a bit. And mortgages are probably going to be less impacted, but slightly going down. So this is going to add a little bit of relief for the consumer. But the market was expecting this for just about the last month. So don't anticipate, sadly, huge rate decreases.
The president has been touting lower housing rates, complaining that the mortgage rates were too high, so perhaps he'll get some relief there. Now, Julia, for many years we've been told that lower interest rates cause inflation. Is that likely to happen here?
That's something that the Fed is balancing and walking this tightrope of. And as you mentioned, they're lowering rates primarily because of the job market. We haven't seen either the October or November official data from the BLS. Now, they did yesterday release their job openings and job losses report, which shows, as you mentioned, a softening labor market, precipitating the main reason why the Fed cut rates. But absolutely, to your point, we see inflation at 3% and core inflation, which subtracts both volatile housing and electricity, at 3.1%, which is 50% greater than the Fed's target rate. And this doesn't mean that prices are going down, but what it means is that the rate of increase in prices has gone down. So Americans are feeling pressure in their wallets. They are looking for more discounts. Holiday numbers are actually just dollar amount at all-time highs. But if you look a little bit deeper into the data, the volume of articles that people are purchasing is actually down. They're opting for less premium products and fewer products. The price of the products is just higher, so we see those higher numbers.
That's interesting. So the prices are still going up. They're just not going up as fast as they used to be. And people now, it seems from what you're saying, are substituting the premium products for something a little more budget. It's interesting. I appreciate that data. Now, Julia, if you follow the politics side of it all, if next year's elections are decided on affordability, which has become the big buzzword, what do you think Republicans want to see happen most over the next 11 months? And looking at the data, what is most likely to happen that could benefit them?
Well, Trump just kicked off his affordability tour in Pennsylvania yesterday, and I think he is doing himself a giant disservice by calling it a Democratic hoax. There are some headwinds and some tailwinds on the affordability front, and I think that Republicans want Trump to focus on the headwinds that Americans are feeling in their pocketbooks. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index demonstrated that consumers are feeling slightly more optimistic this month than last month. But if you zoom out, they're actually feeling quite a bit less optimistic than they were at the beginning of the year when Trump took office. So consumers are feeling squeezed. They do not see this impact of a lot of Trump's positive rhetoric in their pocketbooks. As I mentioned, they're rolling back a lot of their spending, right? Maybe not dramatically, but we do see it in the numbers that consumers are slightly changing their behavior. Now, next year in 2026, the American economy is going to feel a lot of the subsidies of the big, beautiful bill. And also people will see tax rebates, especially on tips and overtime pay, which will give the consumer slightly more breathing room. However, it's important to keep in mind that the big, beautiful bill still includes extremely high government spending, which is just going to further add to the government debt, which is not good news for long-term interest rates.
Very interesting. So you think that although the president has called it a hoax, as you pointed out, Americans in certain areas, they are feeling strain, and better to address that. Now, do you believe, you mentioned a couple of things, tariff rebate checks. The Treasury Secretary has touted that next year's tax refunds could be historically high. Outside of that, do you believe Trump's economic policy so far will result in tangibly better circumstances for people? And if you do, how long will that take to happen?
Yep, great question. The Trump administration, as far as the economic impact, is a mixed bag. There are a lot of things that are positively impacting the economy, especially the deregulatory aspect of his administration. We have seen a lot of companies see that as a very welcome direction. Crypto is a perfect example of this, and Trump is leading the world in crypto regulation and from a very deregulatory and very open stance. Now, his tariff policies are giving consumers and companies a lot of uncertainty. And there have been a mixed bag of what the Trump administration has given for the justification for these tariffs. However, I think that when the Trump administration actually decided to lower tariffs on coffee, for example. So they're admitting that the increase in these tariffs do actually increase prices. So those are two big things. The tariff rebate checks, I think, are somewhat of a boondoggle. I think what's more important is to say that we are not going to have these aggressive tariffs on various products that the consumer is paying for initially, and then we can just skip the rebate checks. But there's a lot going on in the Trump administration, some positive and some negative for the economy.
I felt one interesting data point that came out recently was the volume of imports in the recent reading has fallen a lot, which indicates that maybe Americans may be buying more made in America products, which may ultimately, however long it takes, Julia, start to show up in people's paychecks. We'll have to wait and see. That's Julia Cartwright with AIER. Appreciate it. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you for having me.
And today is Human Rights Day. Forced organ harvesting, forced labor, and overseas repression. These are among the Chinese regime's human rights abuses highlighted by a U.S. government agency. The Congressional Executive Commission on China released its annual report today on China's human rights record called Promises Made, Promises Broken. It highlights human rights abuses, including the expansion of forced labor, systemic repression of religious and ethnic communities such as Falun Gong, Uyghurs and Christians, and mass censorship. The year's report also dedicates a section on overseas abuses, such as harassment of rights advocates outside China's borders, including here in America. The report concludes that the CCP's human rights violations are part of a global strategy to intimidate and censor people on U.S. soil. It recommends several actions the government should take, such as restricting organ tourism, supporting victims, and developing a whole-of-government strategy against transnational repression. And still to come, the Justice Department is suing Minneapolis public schools. The DOJ Civil Rights Division accuses the school district of racial discrimination against teachers. After the break. And Eileen Higgins wins Miami's mayoral race and will become the city's first Democratic mayor in 3 decades. With that and more after the break.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
And the Trump administration is changing lanes into a trucking industry crackdown. Here's more.
In a post on X this morning, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said 9,500 truck drivers have been pulled off the road for not speaking English. President Trump issued an executive order this spring calling for common sense rules of the road for U.S. truckers. The DOT followed up with new guidelines prompting inspectors to pull drivers who didn't speak enough English. And Secretary Duffy tried to limit commercial driver's licenses for foreign-born applicants, but a federal court has paused that initiative. We'll be keeping you updated.
And some visitors to the U.S. could experience a new hurdle. A new CBP proposal which would require applicants from countries in the visa waiver program to disclose up to 5 years of social media history. The condition would apply to those using the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or ESTA. The plan would also collect additional data when available. That includes phone numbers used in the past 5 years, email addresses from the last decade, and would also require several biometric identifiers such as facial, fingerprint, and DNA and iris information. Applicants would be further asked to provide details about family members, and the proposal is up for a 60-day public comment period. ESTA allows travelers from nations to visit the U.S. for up to 90 days. Some immigration attorneys warn that the expanded requirements could discourage travel and online expression. And the Department of Homeland Security is announcing a first-of-its-kind task force in New York State. Officials say it will use a whole-of-government approach to make communities safe.
The mission of the HSTF is to identify and target for prosecution transnational criminal organizations engaged in diverse criminal schemes involving a myriad of federal violations both within the United States and throughout the world. Violations include, but are not limited to, drug trafficking, money laundering, weapons trafficking, human trafficking, homicide, extortion, kidnapping, and other TCO-related violations where there is or may be a federal investigative interest.
The decision comes after President Trump in October announced the establishment of Homeland Security task forces around the country. The New York task force will be co-led by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI while collaborating with local law enforcement. Authorities say this task force will serve as a model for protecting the homeland from evolving threats presented by transnational organized crime.
Today's announcement of our whole of government commitment to Homeland Security is, at its core, about public safety for all New Yorkers. New Yorkers want public safety. They want our parks, schools, subways, and streets to be both safe places and places that feel safe for our families, our children, and our visitors. At the Southern District, across the Justice Department, and across law enforcement, with our federal and state partners, we hear what New Yorkers want, and we are laser focused on delivering it for them.
Law enforcement officials say that crime is down because of hardworking officers, but it's still way above where it should be, particularly for the most vulnerable people in New York. They say they are fully committed to prosecuting those that threaten public safety. And a federal judge today ordering the Trump administration to temporarily end its deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles and return control of the Guard to the state of California. NTD's Eileen Higgins has more.
In a lengthy written order on Wednesday, federal judge Charles Breyer ordered the Trump administration to temporarily end the federalization of California's National Guard. Breyer said there was no evidence that federal law was being obstructed in Los Angeles, where 300 guardsmen have remained since the initial deployment in June. The judge rejected the Justice Department's argument that since the initial deployment was lawful, the court could not review subsequent redeployments of those troops. Breyer said the president's power to call up the National Guard for federal service is not an exclusive power, and that it can be checked by a judge. California Governor Gavin Newsom's attorney had argued that two subsequent 90-day extensions that pushed the deployment until February 2, 2026 were unjustified, and Breyer agreed. In June, Breyer granted Newsom's request to temporarily block the first deployment. President Trump had federalized 2,000 California National Guards in June after unruly protests broke out in response to federal immigration arrests. The government appealed that decision, but the appellate court has yet to make a ruling on it. Now, Breyer stated that by August, the situation in Los Angeles had calmed down and local police could handle the policing of the area, and that reports of unrest that occurred in October were isolated incidents that didn't warrant National Guard intervention. Rejecting the Justice Department's argument that the president was unable to execute laws with regular forces, the judge offered that the president could have made use of his own military stationed in California. The judge declined to grant Newsom's request for all future deployments to be automatically blocked and instructed him to challenge them in court. Eileen Higgins, NTD News.
And when we come back, we speak with the director of a new NTD film about the teaching of critical race theory in American schools and universities. We have that and more after the break.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere, and this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind.
Think you're really gonna like it?
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way is down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox. That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Be your own hero.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. Democrat Eileen Higgins will be Miami's next mayor after a decisive win in a runoff election. She'll become the city's first Democratic mayor in nearly 30 years. The race was called within minutes of polls closing yesterday, with Higgins having a nearly 20-point lead over Republican Emilio Gonzalez. He's a former city manager who was backed by President Trump. Gonzalez called Higgins last night to concede and thanked supporters gathered for his watch party. The race was officially nonpartisan. Both candidates focused on affordability, corruption, and cutting spending. Higgins' win is now drawing national attention ahead of the 2026 midterms as Democrats look to build momentum in Florida. The Justice Department is suing Minneapolis public schools for what it says is racial discrimination against teachers. The department's Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit against the school district. The DOJ pointed to the district's collective bargaining agreement with a teachers' union. According to the lawsuit, the agreement favors teachers who are members of, quote, an underrepresented population. The DOJ accuses Minneapolis public schools of seeking to increase staffing of Black, Indigenous, and people of color to at least 40% by 2026. The suit also alleges that the district awards benefits and conditions to members of a third-party organization called Black Men Teach Fellows. The DOJ says those terms are not offered to female or non-Black teachers. In bringing the suit, Attorney General Pam Bondi said, quote, discrimination is unacceptable in all forms, especially when it comes to hiring decisions. And Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins announcing an initiative today promoting regenerative agriculture. Rollins said the department would invest $700 million into the program.
Protecting and improving the health of our soil is critical, not only for the future viability of farmland, but to the future success of American farmers. In order to continue to be the most productive and most efficient growers in the world, we must protect our topsoil from unnecessary erosion and boost the microbiome of the soil.
Rollins said the program would prioritize American farmers as part of the Make America Healthy Again agenda. The Agriculture Secretary added that the initiative will support access to domestically grown whole foods. Rollins called whole foods critical to addressing the chronic disease crisis nationwide. She added that the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production would extend regenerative priorities into cities and urban areas. And an NTD original film called Adversity, Stories of Critical Race Theory, looks into the debate surrounding DEI and education in schools and universities. Joining us now is director Daniel Hole to tell us more about the film. Daniel, great to see you. It's been too long. What did you find out by making this great documentary?
Hey, Paul, it's great to see you too. Well, I found out just like one story ago, you were talking about in Minneapolis how certain people are being hired on certain conditions. And that's kind of what this documentary is about. Not about that specific topic, more about focused on what children are learning in their schools. So to give you an example, there's people talking about what did my daughter coming home from school and hearing, oh, all people of color are discriminated against, all women are discriminated against. Of course, this is one example. I'm not saying this is happening in every school, but one of the speakers talks directly about this experience, about what her daughter told her one day after school. The question, what did you learn in school today? And that's what she said. And that is what we're trying to talk about in this documentary. What is critical race theory? Where does it come from? What does it do? How is it applied? And in a more important sense, how are people opposing it?
At what age are kids being taught this from in your research?
Well, I'm not going to act like I'm the expert. The real experts are in the film, and so that's another reason to watch it and not me. It's because you want to hear from the experts. But they've said all the way from first grade through high school in terms of applying the principles of it. Now, one of the big debates I've heard before is that people will, in support of critical race theory, would say it's not taught in school. I have a whole section dedicated to that in this documentary, that CRT is not taught in school. And yes, technically that phrase is correct, because as an academic study, as a class, it is taught in universities. It is something tied to legal studies. That's what it grew out of. And I go into the entire origin of where it came from in the documentary. But it's the before it became critical race theory, it did have a legal background. And, legal stuff is generally tied to law schools and universities. But the important thing is that principles, concepts informed by critical race theory, are being applied in a society-wide sense, whether it's to a first grader, to a high school student, or even to companies or roles of employment, like that story just now about only hiring a certain group of people. These are the sort of things that I want to talk about, and you could say even expose in this documentary.
So you mentioned the legal profession, etc. Where did critical race theory originate from?
Yes. So if you really want to track critical race theory back to its roots, I'll go as far back as I can go. It originated from theories from Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. So you could say it has a Marxist origin. It developed into a place, or it was developed by scholars at a place called the Frankfurt School in Germany. Those ideas informed or created something called critical theory that later developed into something called critical legal theory, which was developed in the United States, the legal sense I was talking about. And from that developed critical race theory. So, but to really cut to the chase, the origins are indeed from the theories of Karl Marx.
Incredible. Daniel, I know you have a wide interest in a bunch of different topics, very well informed across the spectrum. What inspired you to make this particular film?
So that's sort of a two-pronged answer. The first reason was, well, it was convenience. The things I was doing at that time, the team I was working with, led me to meet some of the people who you see in this documentary. And in our conversations, they ultimately led to discussions of their kids and critical race theory and its prevalence in education. And then I thought, wow, I'm meeting a lot of people who are discussing this sort of thing. That seems like a pretty good basis for starting a documentary on. So that was one reason. And the other reason is much more personal. So for example, my son, my second child, was born just 1 month ago. So I have a 1-month-old, and and that makes me think about school. I also have a 4-year-old, and she's about to go into kindergarten. And any parent out there knows that when you've got a kid, you start thinking about, where are they going to go to school? Am I in a good school district? And if you inform things by your own history, like if you're my age, you're thinking, oh yeah, school was what it was. There wasn't really anything political about it.
Right.
Using that reference point doesn't really work anymore. A lot of public schools, from what I've found, do include things like this. They are just very subtly including like this sort of education. And before I made the documentary, I thought to myself, I could go about this for my own family and, find a solution that works for my daughter, for my son now. And I could just do that. Or, based on all these people I've met, I can do something broader for the rest of the country, for other people to know, oh my goodness, this is what I could do instead.
Very noble of you. Daniel Hall, we appreciate it. And you can watch Adversity, Stories of Critical Race Theory on Epoch TV and Vimeo. Daniel Hall, thank you so much for your time. Talk soon.
Thank you, Paul.
And President Trump is now talking to media at the White House. We're going to tune in.
Mother who said, nope, he's going to be okay. His mother was the most positive person. And could be that she'll be right. It's pretty amazing. Made progress. It was, both of them were so badly hurt, we never thought that one could survive. So it looks like Andrew's doing pretty well.
The winner of the Nobel Prize dedicated the prize to you, the Nobel Peace Prize. And she left Venezuela at a great risk to make it to the ceremony. There is a risk she could be arrested, actually. What would happen if she's arrested? What message do you send, or would you send to Nicolas Maduro?
Well, arrested by who? The Nobel Prize Committee? It sounds like that's probably the ones that would arrest. I think about it. She was very gracious. She said, I should have gotten the Nobel Prize. And I don't, I'm doing this to save lives. I'm not doing it for any other reason. But no, like if she would be arrested, no, I wouldn't be happy with that.
Mr. President, Senate Republicans currently have a health care proposal that would take away, let those ACA subsidies expire and then put about $1,000 in people's HSAs. Do you think that is enough money, and how do you ensure that people who will see those tax subsidies expire won't see their health care costs skyrocket?
Well, the Unaffordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, they call it now the unaffordable because it's unaffordable. It used to be called the affordable, but it was never affordable. It was always bad. It was basically designed for the benefit of insurance companies. And what we're doing is we want all of the billions and billions of dollars that went to insurance companies to go directly to the people, and they can buy their own health care. And people love it. I don't know if the Democrats are going to approve it because they want the insurance companies to make money. It was a scam. Obamacare was a scam. But we're going to see. I mean, the Republicans, I can tell you, money to go to the people. And we're winning that battle. The Democrats are having a hard time with it because they're in the pocket of the insurance companies. Yes, please, Steve.
You spoke to some European leaders today, I think, sir, about Ukraine. Could you tell us about that? And is there a new revised peace plan that Ukraine has presented?
The leaders of France, we spoke to, and Germany, and UK, all very good leaders, very good friends of mine, and we discussed Ukraine in pretty strong words, and we'll see what happens. I mean, we're waiting to hear answers before we progress. You know, we're not spending any money in Ukraine. We're selling basically missiles and everything else to NATO, and NATO is paying us, and then they distribute it to who they want. I guess they're mostly distributing to Ukraine, but we're not spending money. But you know what we are? We're spending a lot of time and a lot of effort because last month 27,000 soldiers were killed. Both, think of it, 27,000. That's if you take a football game and take half the stadium, that's 27,000. So 27,000 soldiers were killed. Russian and Ukrainian soldiers were killed. And I want to see that stop. We'll find out. Look, there are a lot of things happening right now. A lot of people say it's closer than it's ever been. It's a war that would have never started. If I were president, would have never started. It's a war that should never have started. But we'll have it figured out, I think, within a pretty short period.
You say very strong terms, sir. Could you explain that?
Well, I think we had some little disputes about people, and we're going to see how it turns out. And then we said before we go to a meeting, we want to know some things. You know, they would like us to go to a meeting over the weekend in Europe, and we'll make a determination depending on what they come back with. We don't want to be wasting time. Sometimes you have to let people fight it out, and sometimes you don't. But the problem with letting people fight it out is you're losing thousands of people a week. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous.
Mr. President, 2 questions. One, the oil tanker. Who owns that oil tanker?
You'll get that information later.
Okay, and have you spoken to Maduro since your last conversation?
No,
Or
I
has it
haven't.
only been one conversation?
No.
And when you say that the European leaders want to have a meeting over the weekend, are you talking about with Zelensky or with them?
With Zelensky and us.
And you said in an interview yesterday that you think it's time for Zelensky to start accepting things. What things are you talking about?
I think he has to be realistic, and I do wonder about, how long is it going to be till they have an election? It's democracy. It's a long time. They haven't had an election in a long time. It's losing a lot of people. And it's possible that the people, if you look at the polls, I will say 82%, there was a poll that came out, 82% of the people are demanding a settlement be made, Ukrainian people. They want to see a settlement be made. I understand that. They're losing thousands and thousands of people a week. They want to see it ended. And I do say, at what point, when do they have an election in Ukraine? That's not casting dispersions on anybody, but they do have a massive corruption situation going on there. And they do say, when are they, people are asking this question, when do they have an election? Are they going to have an election? Or are they going to just keep it going like this? So I think it's time to get that war settled. And I think it's a war that can be settled. But it takes two to tango.
Mr. President, is the new owners of Warner Brothers Discovery to make changes at CNN, big changes, and have you spoken to Jared about it? What are you doing with him, or do you sort of wall him off a little bit?
So what do you want to know?
What changes do you want to see at CNN under new ownership?
Well, I'm not involved in that. I will be probably involved, maybe involved in the decision. It depends. You have some good companies bidding on it. I think the people that have run CNN for the last long period of time are a disgrace. I think it's imperative that CNN be sold, because you certainly wouldn't want to put people, just leave those people with some money, good money, and CNN, so that they can spend even more money spreading poison, because it's lies. It's a disgrace. So I wouldn't want to see the same company end up with CNN, the same company with money, because right now they don't have too much money. But they have value, I guess, based on the bids. They've got value. But I think CNN should be sold, because I think the people that are running CNN right now are either corrupt or incompetent.
That'll be a factor in the decision making, because we've got some various
Well,
suitors.
in my mind, but I can be talked out of that by some very talented people that we have, antitrust people. But I just think that the people that have run CNN into the ground, by the way, nobody watches, very few people watch. I don't think they should be entrusted with running CNN any longer. So I think any deal should be guaranteed and certain that CNN is part of it, or sold separately. But I don't think the people that are running that company right now and running CNN, which is a very dishonest group of people, I don't think that should be allowed to continue. I think CNN should be sold along with everything else.
Sir, you spoke about affordability earlier in your remarks and yesterday in Pennsylvania. How much more can we expect to see you on the road kind of delivering that message? And are you worried at all about the Democrats winning a couple more things in Miami and Georgia less than 3?
Worried about it, it's like statistically, it's amazing. When you win the presidency, even if you win by a landslide like we did, and even if you do a good job, and some people say we've done the best opening 10 months in history, in the history of the presidency. I think we have. Who's done better? We ended 8 wars. We have the strongest economy. We have $18 trillion coming in, which is more than any country had, times I think 5 or 6. 18 trillion is a lot even in your standard, right?
Yes, sir.
Even for that guy, 18 trillion is big numbers. But we have $18 trillion coming in. Pretty amazing, right? I think Qualcomm would be very impressed if they had even a little piece of that. So we've done a great job. But for whatever reason, and nobody's been able to give me an answer, when you win the presidency, you seem to lose the midterms. Even if you win the presidency by a lot and you do a great job as president. Some presidents have done good, and they've lost, I think it's like 2 times in the last many, many years it's been won. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. Usually I can figure things out, but I don't know why, but that seems to be. But Other than that, we should win because we're doing great. The economy is roaring. I think the economy is only going to go, better with all this money pouring in. We have factories being built, and forget about AI. We have AI more than anybody. We're leading AI by a lot. But we have many car companies coming in from Canada, from Mexico. They're closing up. They're coming in from Mexico. They're coming in from Canada, from Japan, from Europe, all over Europe, Germany, all over Europe. We're doing great. But for whatever reason, it doesn't matter how well they're doing, good and bad. The bad you understand, but even when a president's doing well, they seem to not do well in the midterms. So we're going to try and change it. There should be no reason for it. If anybody at the table can figure out, Bruce, a nice psychological reason, but so I want to win, and winning the midterms is important. People want us to win the midterms, and I think we have great spirit. We should win the midterms, yeah.
Under Joe Biden's administration, and during COVID specifically, Biden removed the safety standards on abortion drugs. Now I'm hearing from a lot of pro-lifers that they're very anxious because yesterday Bloomberg reported that your FDA is slow walking a review of the abortion drugs that Secretary Kennedy promised.
Yeah,
How soon do you want to see that review completed?
I'll find out. I'll ask them.
Do you want to see it?
I don't think they're slow walking anything. I'll find out. Yeah.
Any update on the clashes between Thailand and Cambodia, sir?
Yeah, I think I'll have to make a phone call. I was going to say that the Thailand and Cambodia, one of the 8 that I settled, they've been fighting for a long time. They've been fighting for a very long time, many, many, many decades. But I got along great with both. I found they were 2 great leaders, 2 great people, and I settled it once. I think I can do it pretty quickly. I think we're scheduling a phone call tomorrow.
Mr. President.
With Thailand.
On the Fed chair.
With Thailand, if just to answer Steve, with Thailand and Cambodia, I think I can get them to stop fighting. Who else can do that? Think of it. Settled 8 wars. Every once in a while, one will flame up again, and I have to put out that little flame. I have to put it out, but we're going to put it out again. So I think I'm scheduled to speak to them tomorrow and see if I can. It was unfortunate what happened. I mean, I know exactly what happened. It got it started a little bit, but we'll see if we can put it out.
We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where
Follow it. Get a helicopter. Follow the tanker.
Is it true it's going to
But
Cuba?
I assume we're going to keep the oil.
Mr. President, on the Fed chair, Kevin Hassett said you were going to announce your decision within the next 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Maybe.
Are you doing your interviews with finalists today?
Well, I'm meeting with Kevin Warsh today, so I'm meeting with them. I sort of have a very good idea what I'm looking for. Again, I'm looking for somebody that will be honest with interest rates. So I just want honesty. Our rate should be much lower. Our rate should be the lowest rates in the world. Because all these countries that you see, with low rates, many of them are low because of us, because they suck so much money out of us. But that's not happening anymore. We should have the lowest rates in the world. And without us, none of them really exist as an economy. I mean, I can show you these really prime, really wonderful countries. They've had nothing but success. It's because they took so much out of the United States. I mean, it's one of those little problems. I want to see that when we do well, we're rewarded for doing well, not the way it's been for the last pretty long period of time.
Are you asking these finalists to pledge to lower rates if they become the chair?
No, I'll be asking questions and I'll be able to figure it out.
So we have 3 countries sending drugs to the U.S., Mexico, Venezuela, and Colombia. And you talked to the president of Mexico, you already talked to Nicolas Maduro. Have you considered talking to the president of Colombia, whom you called a drug leader?
No, I haven't really thought too much about him. He's been fairly hostile to the United States, and I haven't given him a lot of thought. He's going to have himself some big problems if he doesn't wise up. Colombia is producing a lot of drugs. They have cocaine factories that they make cocaine, as you know, and they sell it right into the United States. So he better wise up, or he'll be next. He'll be next too. And I hope he's listening. He's going to be next.
Yes,
Mr. President.
because we don't like people when they kill people, and they sell drugs, they kill them in the United States, and Colombia is a major manufacturer of drugs, meaning cocaine in particular, as you know.
Thank you, Mr. President. Multiple House Republicans in recent weeks, days, have been critical of Speaker Mike Johnson. I wanted to ask you if you're still confident in the Speaker to keep his conference together ahead of the midterms, and how often are you speaking about him?
I think Mike Johnson is great. You know, he's had a majority of 2, 3, 4, then back to 2. We actually had 1. So we were 1 heart attack away from disaster. So everybody prayed for everybody's health. I think Mike Johnson's been a fantastic speaker. I mean, a very hard job because, you know, when you have a small majority, and we got the biggest bill in the history of our country approved, the Great Big Beautiful Bill. I call it the Great Big Beautiful Bill. There are different names for it, but to me it's a Great Big Beautiful Bill because it gives the biggest tax cuts in history, the biggest regulation cuts in history. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. I think Mike Johnson's been a great speaker. I think few people could have done that job.
Do you want to see another big package move through Capitol Hill in the next year, or?
Well, we don't need it because we got everything. You know, this was supposed to be 17 bills. I think it was my idea, but, you know, with the concurrence of people that have done this a long time. And I said, why don't we make it 1 bill? Because it's very hard to get things approved by the Democrats. And it worked out because there was something good for everybody. If we would have done 17 bills, we wouldn't have gotten a third of them approved. It was something great for everybody in the one, you know, the Great Big Beautiful Bill.
If I could follow up, yes, good to see you, Mr. President. If I could follow up on the event last night in Pennsylvania, huge crowd turned out there.
Big crowd.
It seemed like Rally Trump was in prime condition last night. You enjoyed it. Can you just give me your thoughts on that? And then I do have a question on the gold card.
Last night was amazing in Pennsylvania. We had a tremendous crowd. It was like freezing. And the people, the thousands of people on the sidewalk trying to get in on the streets. It was an amazing evening, actually, and I think people really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. You could tell that.
I can tell that you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I really did. Well, you know, it's easy to enjoy when you do a good job, and you know, when you can talk about things in a very positive way. It's hard not to say it. We have potentially the greatest economic boom in the history of the world. It's being built right now, and when it opens, there will be nothing ever in history like what's happening in our country. And, you know, Washington, D.C. is safe, and Memphis is now. Look at Memphis. Crime is down 60% in Memphis. We just got there 3 weeks ago. And we're going to have New Orleans. New Orleans was we just sent a group of people there, and crime is down 28% in about 3 days. No, we do a good job, you know, and these are central casting people. These people they're very tough people if they have to be. They're very good, they're great patriots, but they are the toughest, and they don't take any nonsense. And every place we go, we knock down crime. Too bad that we're not invited more into Chicago, because we could save Chicago very quickly. But even that, we're doing it on a minimal basis until, you know, at some point we'll just go in and do what we have to do if the governor doesn't wise up. Got a bad governor, they have a bad mayor. I would say they're both incompetent, but it's hard to believe that people don't want to stop crime. We could stop the crime in Chicago in about 2 weeks. Go ahead.
My question is on the gold card. And I apologize if I missed the answer to this. Is there a limit to how many gold cards these companies can buy?
Howard?
So the program is part of the already approved visas. So we're just going to have great people that come into this country. You know, the average green card holder earned less than the average American. So they were more likely to be on the dole and be on our assistance programs than average Americans. And the idea is from President Trump, he wants to raise it, bring in the best people into America. So same visas, but now just full of the best people.
Basically, it's a green card, but much better, much more powerful, a much stronger path. And a path is a big deal. Have to be great people, but much stronger path.
And it also, in addition to that, helps companies, because not only for companies, but if IBM gets somebody #1 in his class at the Wharton School of Finance, and you're dying to get the person, but you can't guarantee the person stays in the country, because oftentimes they say, I'm sorry, sir, you got to get out of here, you have 24 hours, right? And you say, where's my employee? Now IBM can buy a card, and that employee can be there for essentially a very long period of time.
Mr. President,
Did you tell Bruce
It's so needed for the companies. You know, it's needed for others, but really it's basically a much better form of a green card. And you can't get green cards. They are impossible to get. This is much better than a green card. Yeah.
Yes, so did you tell Bruce Clayton not to run for governor, or that you should think about not running for governor?
I haven't spoken to, first of all, he's a friend, she's a friend. These are two great people running. In a way, I hate to see them running against each other. I hope they're not going to be damaging each other. But Elisa's fantastic, and Bruce is, they're two fantastic people. And I always hate it when two very good friends of mine are running. And I hope there's not a lot of damage done. Sometimes it works the other way. The picture ends up being much stronger because of it. A lot of times that happens in politics.
You think you'll step in a couple months after you see who performs?
Well, I think in New York we have a convention toward the end of February, and I think you'll know pretty much at the end of February what's going to happen. And I'll probably have to, you know, do what I want to do. But I hope that he's running now, as you know, and she's running. We have two very talented people. Either one should win against the Democrats.
Mr. President, legacy story lately focuses on one of your cabinet members predicting that you're going to fire this one or you're going to get rid of that one. Of all your cabinet members, who would you perceive as the most under attack?
Well, I think my cabinet is fantastic. I read these same stories that I'm unhappy with this one or that one, and I'm not. I think the cabinet's done a great job. I read a story that I was unhappy with Pete because he was attacking drug dealers. I said, that's not exactly right. I would say very much the opposite. Pete Hegseth has been phenomenal. I read a story recently, I'm unhappy with Christie. I'm so happy with it. I mean, we have a closed border. We have a border that's the best border in the history of our country. Why would I be unhappy? She's fantastic, actually. No, we have a fantastic cabinet. Really fantastic cabinet. I mean, Lutnick I'll have to think about. No, can't have everything. Can't have everything. He's doing great. Well, Howard's done really well, and Scott's done really well. We have just a fantastic cabinet. I'll tell you who's doing a great job is Linda McMahon. We're bringing education back to the states where it belongs. Education is going, we can't do any worse than we're doing right now, and let the states run it. You know, if you go back to some of our states that are run so well, so good, I would say 40 of them. And then you'll have trouble with 5, and you'll have bigger trouble with another 5. But you have 35 or 40 states that will run education as good as Norway or Denmark, Sweden. We have some, you know, the heads of the list are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, a few others. I think if you go to Iowa and you go to Indiana and you go to, I can name a lot of states, I think it would be almost the equivalent or maybe better. But you can't run a school system in Iowa from Washington, D.C. Yeah.
So the Gaza plan, when do you expect to announce members of the Board of Peace, the leadership of that?
Well, we'll do it early next year. And the Board of Peace are going to, it'll be one of the most legendary boards ever. Everybody wants to be on it. It's mostly going to be, I guess, you know, we weren't thinking about it that way, but they want to all do it. Basically, it'll be the heads of the most important countries.
Mr. President.
They all want to be on. It wasn't really planned. We thought we were going to get very distinguished people that do that kind of thing for a living. But really, it looks like it's turning out to be, they want to be on the heads, the kings, and the presidents, prime ministers, they all want to be on the board of peace.
Mr. President, on the video follow-up to last night's rally, can you clarify, you have called the affordability crisis as a Democratic hoax, but you also want to make America affordable again.
No,
Can you just clarify?
the word that they use is a hoax, and because they're the ones that caused the problem. I'm talking about when you're trying to say it a different way. Now, it's pretty simple, though, if you listen. It's a hoax where they created the problem. They're the ones that gave the high prices. So when they use the word affordability, they shouldn't be using that word because they're the ones that created this problem. They created the highest inflation in history, and they created the highest prices in history. And now we have to get those things down. But when they go, they look and they say affordability. They never discuss it. They just say the election's about affordability. Well, it may very well be. I think it's also about still the border. You have to remember the job. You know, the sad thing is, for 7 months, we've had no people come through our border. Nobody can even believe it. 0 people. And the people that do that are largely Democrats, which the people that do the stats. We've had no people come in, other than coming in legally. But if you take a look, and nobody wants to talk about that. In fact, last night I said, let me talk about the border. My own people told me, sir, nobody cares about the border anymore. You've fixed the problem. I said, do I get a little credit for fixing a disaster where millions of people a month would flow into our country, and from prisons and from gangs and from drug dealers and mental institutions? They say, sir, you fixed the border. Nobody cares. I say, but I care. It's sad when you fix something and then you can't even use it. You can't talk about it. My own people don't want to talk about it anymore. But very simply, the Democrats created the worst crisis of inflation that this country's ever had. And with that came the highest prices that we've ever had. And I'm fixing it.
Mr. President, has Secretary Higgins told you why he hasn't released the video of the second strike?
No, he hasn't told me. I thought that issue was dead. I'm surprised you bring it up. You must be CNN.
Lawmakers are still talking about it on the Hill.
Are you CNN?
I am with CNN.
Oh, gee, I'm shocked to find out.
But lawmakers are still talking about it on the Hill.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know about lawmakers. Which lawmakers are you talking about?
Mostly Democrats have been talking about trying to release it.
I mean, the people that you work for, the Democrats? You know you work for the Democrats, don't you? You're basically an arm of the Democrat Party. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And now that was President Trump with some cabinet members and business leaders. Covered a lot of stuff. He said that he spoke to European leaders about Ukraine. He didn't go into details, but highlighted recent corruption problems in Ukraine and asked when there would be another election in the country. There hasn't been one since the war began. He also said he's not worried about recent election losses in Miami and elsewhere, but he did acknowledge that the president's party often does poorly in midterm elections, but he said the Republicans should still win. And finally, Trump said that he assumes the U.S. will keep the oil in the massive Venezuelan tanker it just seized. Now, if you haven't kept up with that, the U.S. has seized a large oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela, with President Trump confirming this during a roundtable this afternoon. He said it was one of the largest tankers ever seized. The move could escalate tensions between Washington and Caracas. President Trump has ordered a massive U.S. military buildup in the region. Now, this includes an aircraft carrier, fighter jets, and tens of thousands of troops. Oil exports are Venezuela's main source of revenue. The country exported more than 900,000 barrels of oil per day last month. Oil prices rose in response to news of the tanker seizure. We'll keep you updated, as always. And that the seizure of that tanker comes as the Nobel Committee held its award ceremony today for its renowned Peace Prize given this year to the Venezuelan opposition leader. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more.
The presidents of Panama, Paraguay, Ecuador, and Argentina, alongside several U.S. lawmakers, traveled to Norway to accompany the Venezuelan opposition leader in this year's award ceremony for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. Despite much anticipation, Maria Corina Machado was not able to attend the ceremony. Her daughter, Ana Corina Sosa, received the Nobel Peace Prize on her behalf and read a speech written by Machado.
During the past 16 months in clandestinity, we have built new networks of civic pressure and disciplined disobedience, preparing for Venezuela's orderly transition to democracy. This prize carries profound meaning. It reminds the world that democracy is essential to peace.
The 2025 Nobel Peace Prize and the support from presidents from the region have highlighted the oppression and the crimes of the Maduro regime in Venezuela.
Your power is not permanent. Your violence will not prevail over people who rise and resist. Mr. Maduro, accept the election result and step down.
The Venezuelan regime, which has killed extrajudicially more than 8,000 Venezuelans in the past 6 years, criticized the Nobel Committee.
Or peace, or Nobel Prize, which is awarded to a person who calls for the invasion of Venezuela, who calls for military action, and who celebrates the murder of human beings in the Caribbean Sea.
During an interview earlier this week, President Trump did not rule out military interventions in Venezuela.
So how far would you go to take Maduro out of office?
I don't want to say that,
But you want to see him out?
his days are numbered.
Can you rule out an American ground invasion?
I don't want to rule in or out. I don't talk about it.
Maria Corina Machado has been in hiding in Venezuela for nearly 2 years as she's under threat from the regime. Security concerns did not allow her to arrive on time to the award ceremony in Oslo, but she is still expected to arrive in Norway this week. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
And the Department of Homeland Security is announcing a first-of-its-kind task force in New York State. Officials say it will use a whole-of-government approach to make communities safe.
The mission of the HSTF is to identify and target for prosecution transnational criminal organizations engaged in diverse criminal schemes involving a myriad of federal violations both within the United States and throughout the world. Violations include, but are not limited to, drug trafficking, money laundering, weapons trafficking, human trafficking, homicide, extortion, kidnapping, and other TCO-related violations where there is or may be a federal investigative interest.
The decision comes after President Trump in October announced the establishment of Homeland Security task forces around the country. The New York task force will be co-led by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI while collaborating with local law enforcement. Authorities say this task force will serve as a model for protecting the homeland from evolving threats presented by transnational organized crime.
Today's announcement of our whole-of-government commitment to Homeland Security is, at its core, about public safety for all New Yorkers. New Yorkers want public safety. They want our parks, schools, subways, and streets to be both safe places and places that feel safe for our families, our children, and our visitors. At the Southern District, across the Justice Department, and across law enforcement, with our federal and state partners, we hear what New Yorkers want, and we are laser focused on delivering it for them.
Law enforcement officials say that crime is down because of hardworking officers, but is still way above where it should be, particularly for the most vulnerable people in New York. They say they are fully committed to prosecuting those that threaten public safety. And a federal judge today ordering the Trump administration to temporarily end its deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles and return control of the Guard to the state of California. NTD's Eileen Higgins says more.
In a lengthy written order on Wednesday, federal judge Charles Breyer ordered the Trump administration to temporarily end the federalization of California's National Guard. Breyer said there was no evidence that federal law was being obstructed in Los Angeles, where 300 guardsmen have remained since the initial deployment in June. The judge rejected the Justice Department's argument that since the initial deployment was lawful, the court could not review subsequent redeployments of those troops. Breyer said the president's power to call up the National Guard for federal service is not an exclusive power, and that it can be checked by a judge. California Governor Gavin Newsom's attorney had argued that two subsequent 90-day extensions that pushed the deployment until February 2, 2026 were unjustified, and Breyer agreed. In June, Breyer granted Newsom's request to temporarily block the first deployment. President Trump had federalized 2,000 California National Guards in June after unruly protests broke out in response to federal immigration arrests. The government appealed that decision, but the appellate court has yet to make a ruling on it. Now, Breyer stated that by August, the situation in Los Angeles had calmed down and local police could handle the policing of the area, and that reports of unrest that occurred in October were isolated incidents that didn't warrant National Guard intervention. Rejecting the Justice Department's argument that the president was unable to execute laws with regular forces, the judge offered that the president could have made use of his own military stationed in California. The judge declined to grant Newsom's request for all future deployments to be automatically blocked and instructed him to challenge them in court. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And the Trump administration is changing lanes into a trucking industry crackdown. Here's more.
In a post on X this morning, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said 9,500 truck drivers have been pulled off the road for not speaking English. President Trump issued an executive order this spring calling for common sense rules of the road for U.S. truckers. The DOT followed up with new guidelines prompting inspectors to pull drivers who didn't speak enough English. And Secretary Duffy tried to limit commercial driver's licenses for foreign-born applicants, but a federal court has paused that initiative. We'll be keeping you updated.
And some visitors to the U.S. could experience a new hurdle, a new CBP proposal which would require applicants from countries in the visa waiver program to disclose up to 5 years of social media history. The condition would apply to those using the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or ESTA. The plan would also collect additional data when available. That includes phone numbers used in the past 5 years, email addresses from the last decade, and would also require several biometric identifiers such as facial, fingerprint, and DNA and iris information. Applicants would be further asked to provide details about family members, and the proposal is up for a 60-day public comment period. ESTA allows travelers from nations to visit the U.S. for up to 90 days. Some immigration attorneys warn that the expanded requirements could discourage travel and online expression. And European nations signed a declaration calling to end the use of human rights laws to prevent the deportation of foreign criminals, saying current laws are outdated and no longer work in an era of mass migration. Here's more from NTD News' international correspondent, Malcolm Hudson.
Governments from 27 of the 46 Council of Europe member states are calling for European human rights laws to change. They seek to address issues within the framework which have interfered with the ability of states to deport foreign criminals and other immigrants in an era of mass migration. Council of Europe Justice Ministers promised further discussions on reforms. Council of Europe General Secretary Elaine Berset said this is an important first step.
Some are asking a simple question. Is an instrument born in the 1950s still fit for 21st century challenges?
In 2022, the first planned flight carrying deportees from the UK to Rwanda was blocked by an injunction from the European Court of Human Rights. This overruled a judgment by the UK's Supreme Court. British Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary David Lammy said countries must be able to remove foreign criminals, and that rights such as family life and protection from inhumane and degrading treatment should not be stretched to block deportations. In one UK case, an Albanian criminal's deportation was blocked partly because his son will not eat foreign chicken nuggets.
Ministers have also expressed their concerns regarding the unprecedented challenges posed by migration and the serious questions governments face in maintaining societies that deliver for citizens.
The summit's conclusions call for recommendations on tackling migrant trafficking. a new committee on migration challenges, and a declaration affirming members' commitments to the rights of migrants, including foreign offenders. It is expected to be signed in Moldova in May. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Still to come, the Justice Department is suing Minneapolis public schools. The DOJ Civil Rights Division accuses the school district of racial discrimination against teachers. And the chairwoman of the National Transportation Safety Board voices concerns about proposed legislation following January's mid-air collision near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. She says safety recommendations are just being ignored. With that and more after the break.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gone Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Restaurant quality pho with no wait. In just 4 minutes, you get bold, authentic Vietnamese flavor with Pholicious. Available in beef or chicken. Crafted from real beef tallow or chicken, it's comforting and full of tradition. Just add your favorite fresh extras. Every bowl comes packed with everything you need for the ultimate pho experience and ready in minutes. Bring the bold, authentic flavors of Vietnam straight to your home. Pholicious is now available at Walmart or walmart.com.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. We got one more rate cut before the end of the year. Federal Reserve announcing a slash in rates to a range between 3.5 and 3.75%.
With today's decision, we have lowered our policy rate 0.75 of a percentage point over our last 3 meetings. This further normalization of our policy stance should help stabilize the labor market while allowing inflation to resume its downward trend toward 2% once the effects of tariffs have passed through.
Now, this was a split decision for Fed officials. They're in disagreement over which side of their dual mandate to prioritize: full employment or stable prices. Job growth this year has been unusually weak. Several officials have said the situation could get worse if they don't continue to lower rates. Other officials, though, said that the greater risk is that inflation will stay stuck above the Fed's 2% target as tariffs pack a bigger punch. In fact, there were 3 dissenting votes. This is the first time since 2019 there have been so many dissenting votes. Added pressure to the decision was a lack of key data on employment and inflation for October and November. These were delayed by the historic government shutdown. This month's meeting marks the last before Fed Chair Jerome Powell's successor will be named. His term ends in May, and President Trump says he knows whom he's going to nominate, and he plans to make the announcement early next year. Now with us now, with the latest on the Fed's move to lower interest rates, is Amel Akan, Senior White House correspondent for the Epoch Times. Amel, great to see you as always. You were there at the Fed Reserve as the Fed Reserve Chairman laid out his interest rate cut. What were the main takeaways from today's decision and the news conference?
Great to see you, Paul. Yes, today was the last decision, Fed rate cuts decision of the year, 25 basis points, as you just said. And we are seeing some positive reaction from the market, which is great. And I think there is some also indication that there will be rate cuts in January. However, as you highlighted, there is a big division at the moment within the Fed, and that is because of the uncertainty about the economic data. And because of the lack of data, because of the government shutdown, the economists, Fed officials are unable to make accurate estimate about the state of the economy, and I think that's one of the key takeaways for me from that meeting, because the Fed chair said about this clash within the Fed. He called this as a persistent disagreement about the two goals that the Federal Reserve has. As you said, it's the maximum employment and the stable prices. So some Fed officials are not in line with the Fed decision, today's decision. Some did want to make no change to the Fed interest rates, and some did want, one person said today's economy requires further cuts because of the weakening in the employment market. So I think that's one of the key takeaways of this decision, and lack of data. And Chair Powell also said today that there is a lot of overestimate in the labor market. I think that's very concerning, and that's one of the things that the president has been highlighting. President Trump has been raising concerns about the data coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics about the employment market, and that is actually a red flag for me, because if you don't have accurate employment data, how do you make accurate estimates about the direction of the economy and the Fed decision on the rate cuts?
Absolutely, you've been covering this for a long time. I've been covering Fed decisions for a long time. Amel really came into the spotlight since the pandemic with those major cuts. And yeah, we haven't seen this type of division. And also, like you said, missing data for the Fed officials to work off, which has really added to the intrigue, I think, around all of Trump's rhetoric and kind of words around Chairman Jerome Powell. It's been interesting. Now, you mentioned the market and anyone watching their 401ks or retirement funds. What were some of the key messages on policy directions for next year? We know how investors like to keep on top of what the Fed may actually do. Should Americans expect more rate cuts next year?
That is the expectation. Investors are hoping that there will be rate cuts in January as well. There is some concern about the tariffs and its impact on the pricing. So it might be delayed. But I think that what Fed chair today said was really assuring, and it was really welcoming news, is that he said that rate hikes is not a base case scenario. And I think that's a welcoming news for investors. And again, I mean, there's also a big revision in the economic data. The Fed is now expecting higher growth next year in 2026. This is partly because of the business investments in AI, as well as strong consumer spending. We saw one of the record-breaking, spending in Black Friday and Cyber Monday, despite the fact that there are a lot of talks about affordability problems in the country. So I think the consumer spending part was also interesting, and Fed Chair Powell highlighted that as well. So I think the economy looking strong. Employment data is kind of concerning because there's lack of data, but I think overall picture was positive for investors.
It's really a mixed bag when you look at the economic data at the moment. Hard to make sense of it. We know that the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, his term is ending next May, Amel. It's no secret that President Trump is going to replace him. Trump said in a Politico interview, I'm sure you saw it a couple of days ago, that it's a prerequisite for anyone who's going to come in and replace Powell to be rate cut friendly, to put it in my own words. Now, Trump is expected to announce that new Fed chair soon. Who do you think is the leading candidate, and how might the appointment influence rate decisions next year?
It's hard to know, but he already made that decision. He said that he's going to announce soon. I don't know the timing yet, but many people are expecting Kevin Hassett, his top economic advisor, to be the next Fed chair. And I think he is among the candidates. I believe he's the one that aligns a lot with President Trump's, messaging about the rate cuts. And I think he will be the one who might be more favoring the rate cuts. And today, one of the top candidates, Chris Waller, was in line with today's decision, which was 25 basis points cut, which is not maybe enough for President Trump. As we all know, he wants more rate cuts. And even today, he just expressed that he just wants he just wants more rate cuts. He wants to see more rate cuts. And I think it's important for his fight in changing the narrative about the affordability problem, because eventually higher borrowing rates impact people as well.
Well, on that point, Amel, we know the president touring Pennsylvania yesterday, talking about affordability, with the Democrats on the other side talking affordability, crediting it for recent election wins. How exactly are high interest rates affecting affordability for Americans?
I think high interest rates are very important. Even today, Fed Chair Powell acknowledged the fact that there is a housing crisis in the country, and he talked about shortage of housing. But how do we have shortage of housing? We need to build housing, but construction companies are suffering because of borrowing rates, right? High borrowing rates impact construction in the country, so that's actually impacting shortage is fueling the shortage in the housing market. Of course, there are other factors that are contributing to the shortage, such as zoning and permitting processes. So the states need to take action as well. But I think borrowing costs also play a huge factor, because we know from the construction companies there are issues. And also, for example, utility, electricity, there needs to be a lot of facilities need to be upgraded. The power plants need upgrading, and facilities and the infrastructure need upgrading, and these require financing, and financing means higher borrowing in the market. Today we have 6 to 7% for housing, mortgage rates, and for construction companies, small businesses, these are fueling their costs, they're fueling their expenses, if you take into account high borrowing costs, and they are reflected into the consumer market. So the prices are going up partly because of the borrowing costs. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I think that's why President Trump wants the borrowing costs to come down, interest rates to come down.
Well, that's interesting. You touched on two interesting points: home ownership, big Trump priority, Amel, and also electricity prices, which haven't really started coming down just yet, Amel. We had Michael Bustler on the show. He thinks that next year, once Trump's policies really start to take effect of emphasizing fossil fuels, etc., he expects electricity prices to start coming down at some point next year. So we'll wait and see what may come about. That's Amel Khan at the one and only Epoch Times. Amel, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
And the National Transportation Safety Board held a press conference this afternoon, nearly a year after a mid-air collision over Reagan Washington National Airport. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homeney objected to a provision included in potential legislation that would allow military training missions in Washington, D.C. airspace, despite safety reforms recommended by the board.
It represents an unacceptable risk to the flying public, to commercial and military aircraft crews, and to the residents in the region. It's also an unthinkable dismissal of our investigation and of 67 families who lost loved ones in a tragedy that was entirely preventable.
In January, an Army Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines regional jet. The crash killed all 67 people aboard both aircraft. Following the incident, the NTSB issued several safety recommendations. However, Hamadeh said today that language in the 2026 National Defence Authorization Act ignores some of those recommendations. The NTSB chair said she has sent a letter to the House and Senate Armed Services Committee voicing her concerns. And Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins announcing an initiative today promoting regenerative agriculture. Rollins said the department would invest $700 million into the program.
Protecting and improving the health of our soil is critical, not only for the future viability of farmland, but to the future success of American farmers. In order to continue to be the most productive and most efficient growers in the world, we must protect our topsoil from unnecessary erosion and boost the microbiome of the soil.
Rollins said the program would prioritize American farmers as part of the Make America Healthy Again agenda. The Agriculture Secretary added that the initiative will support access to domestically grown whole foods. Rollins called whole foods critical to addressing the chronic disease crisis nationwide. She added that the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production would extend regenerative priorities into cities and urban areas. The Justice Department is suing Minneapolis Public Schools for what it says is racial discrimination against teachers. The department's Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit against the school district. The DOJ pointed to the district's collective bargaining agreement with a teachers' union. According to the lawsuit, the agreement favors teachers who are members of, quote, an underrepresented population. The DOJ accuses Minneapolis Public Schools of seeking to increase staffing of Black, Indigenous, and people of color to at least 40% by 2026. The suit also alleges that the district awards benefits and conditions to members of a third-party organization called Black Men Teach Fellows. The DOJ says those terms are not offered to female or non-Black teachers. In bringing the suit, Attorney General Pam Bondi said, quote, discrimination is unacceptable in all forms, especially when it comes to hiring decisions. And still to come, a presidential election could take place in Ukraine within 3 months. That's according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Find out more after the break.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. What'd you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises. Just try it. Good. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling. I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
See it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults.
but you can escape. Take the 1-minute pre-diabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
My graduation was something I will never forget. People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in yourself, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says a presidential election could potentially be held within 3 months. Russia has long criticized that Zelensky wasn't officially re-elected after his term expired during the war. NTD's international correspondent Eileen Higgins has more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says a presidential election could be held in 60 to 90 days, but only if balloting could be made safe during wartime. He told reporters that he's ready for an election, but would need help from the US and possibly Europe to ensure security for a vote to happen. According to Kiev, the last election didn't take place because safety of the voting process could not be guaranteed during the war. But the Ukrainian president says the decision on whether an election should be held is not up to Ukraine's partner nations.
The issue of elections in Ukraine, in my view, primarily depends on our people, and it is a matter for the people of Ukraine, not the people of other states, with all due respect to our partners.
Zelensky also denies claims, saying that he's not holding elections because he wants to hold on to power. The Kremlin on Wednesday reacting to the possibility of Ukraine holding elections.
This is what President Putin has talked about for a long time. It's also what President Trump has talked about recently. Therefore, we'll see how things develop in this direction.
Meanwhile, European countries plan further talks in the next few days to coordinate efforts on a peace plan. That's according to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who says European security interests must be protected.
Und alles, was uns Europäer betrifft,
and anything that affects us, Europeans, requires our consent. European security interests must be safeguarded, and that is for us to decide.
He added that he also wants an EU agreement on the use of frozen Russian assets for Ukraine. And in Russia, the nation's foreign minister says President Trump is the only Western leader trying to protect human rights in Ukraine.
Because the proposals that Stephen Witkoff brought specifically mention the need to ensure in Ukraine the rights of national minorities and religious freedoms.
Russia has long claimed that it invaded Ukraine partly to protect Russian citizens living there as a minority. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And today is Human Rights Day. Forced organ harvesting, forced labor, and overseas repression. These are among the Chinese regime's human rights abuses highlighted by a U.S. government agency. The Congressional Executive Commission on China released its annual report today on China's human rights record called Promises Made, Promises Broken. It highlights human rights abuses, including the expansion of forced labor, systemic repression of religious and ethnic communities such as Falun Gong, Uyghurs and Christians, and mass censorship. The year's report also dedicates a section on overseas abuses, such as harassment of rights advocates outside China's borders, including here in America. The report concludes that the CCP's human rights violations are part of a global strategy to intimidate and censor people on U.S. soil. It recommends several actions the government should take, such as restricting organ tourism, supporting victims, and developing a whole-of-government strategy against transnational repression. And still to come, NTD spoke with some interesting vendors at the Union Square Holiday Market in Manhattan, New York. Stay with us.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for.
once in your lifetime. Shenyun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Picture this, the heart of Manhattan, full of energy, movement, and life. Now imagine bringing that same vitality into your home with trusted health insights for your body, mind, and soul. Every week, Vital Signs dives into health issues that matter the most. The foods that strengthen your immune system, the exercises that keep you moving, the mindfulness practices that calm your mind, plus expert advice from doctors and health leaders you can trust. This isn't just another health show. It's real insight designed to keep you informed, inspired, and in motion. So whether you're starting your day with focus or winding down with balance, Vital Signs brings health and vitality straight into your living room.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options. Only at selectspecs.com.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. A long-running holiday tradition is once again taking flight. Leaders from the U.S. Air Force and partnering nations gathered yesterday to mark the official start of Operation Christmas Drop. It's the Department of War's longest-running humanitarian mission in the Pacific, and involves airlifting bundles of critical supplies to remote communities across the Pacific. Air Force Colonel Richard McCallany loaded the first official bundle into the cargo bay of a military plane. It's one of 270 that will supply around 56,000 people across 59 islands. The bundles contain critical supplies like food, water, medical supplies, clothing, and some toys as well. The Vice President of Micronesia, Irene Palik, extended his gratitude, saying the operation delivers more than just supplies. He said it brings the spirit of compassion that defines the Christmas season. The spokesperson for the operation says crews will fly Christmas Drop until Friday, alongside planes from Canada, Japan, and South Korea. Beautiful. And among the traditional holiday season markets in New York City is the Union Square Holiday Market. It follows the usual trend for holiday markets in New York City of being filled with extremely unique and creative items. NTD Sean Marshall was there to speak to some of the vendors.
Since 1993, urban space holiday markets have become a New York City tradition, with locations around Manhattan, New York. Named the best holiday market in America in 2023, the Union Square Holiday Market welcomes close to 200 vendors featuring unique gifts created by local craftspeople, artists, and entrepreneurs. While walking around and shopping for personal items, the word shrapnel caught my eye above everything else at the Article 22 booth.
So we work with artisans who, back in the 70s, when they returned to their farmland in northern Laos, there was a lot of shrapnel, debris, scrap metal, but also unexploded ordnance left over from the war. The U.S. dropped over 80 million cluster bombs, over 240 million cluster bombs in Laos, and 80 million of them didn't detonate. So we're working with a nonprofit that's still demining those bombs today, clearing them out of farmland so people can use the land again. And then we work with the artisans in northern Laos who started melting down that scrap 50 years ago to make soup spoons. It's the same families who are making the jewelry today. So this is their project, translated to sell here in New York, in DC, and around the country to tell their story, continue that legacy, and also hopefully do some good in clearing the land so they can use it to farm again.
Union Square is a very popular area and farmers market throughout the year. When the holiday market pops up, the assortment of foods and drinks available are vast. That's where I found a free herbal tea sample at Pixie Doodle Farm to wash down some apple cider donuts. Its owners were inspired through their meditation and herbal studies after losing their show performance job during the pandemic.
Meditation actually led me to that. I was developing a good meditative practice, was reading books on chakras, which got me into more lifestyle, and Ayurveda is all about lifestyle. So food, digestion, herbs, spices to help balance my body. And that got me into making my own blends, and then meeting my partner Erica. She's played with herbs and plants, and so it's just kind of expanded from that into more of a focus with teas.
The Union Square Holiday Market runs through Christmas Eve, December 24th. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Paul Graney. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.